What does Chidinma, Banky W, Bez, Wierd and Mercy Chinwo all have in common? They all left or rejected secular music for the gospel. Some switched to gospel music, others switched lifestyle, and some became preachers. This is what happened.
There is something about a secular to gospel switch that always fascinates people. Maybe it is because music is never just music. It is identity, it is influence, it is lifestyle, it is brand. So when a well-known Nigerian artist steps away from mainstream fame, chart pressure, club records and celebrity expectation and turns toward worship, ministry or faith-driven music, people notice. Sometimes the secular to gospel crossover happens with one dramatic announcement. Sometimes it happens quietly over years with lyrics changing before the public fully understands what is happening. And sometimes the internet says an artist switched, but the truth is far more layered than that. In this video, we are counting down from number 6 to number 1, looking deeply at 6 Nigerian artists often linked to the secular to gospel switch conversation.
Number 6. Mercy Chinwo. Let's start with the most complicated name on this list because Mercy Chinwo is often mentioned in secular to gospel crossover conversations, but the facts tell a more careful story. Before Mercy Chinwo became one of the biggest names in African gospel music, most Nigerians first encountered her through Nigerian Idol, which she won in 2012. That victory put her on a mainstream platform and introduced her to a national audience beyond church walls. She also appeared in film, including House of Gold, which made her visible in entertainment circles outside gospel music. But here is where accuracy matters. The public record shows Mercy Chinwo had been singing in church from childhood, and after Nigerian Idol, she did not really establish a long mainstream secular recording run before choosing gospel. In fact, sources consistently describe her post-Idol path as one that moved into gospel ministry and gospel recording, with singles like Testimony and Igwe arriving before the huge explosion of Excess Love. So if we are being professionally honest, Mercy Chinwo is not a classic secular to gospel switch. She is better described as a singer who received mainstream fame first, then used that visibility to build a gospel career rather than a secular one. That distinction matters because this is not just about storytelling, it is about precision.
Number 5.
Obi-Wan. If you want a true secular to gospel switch story in Nigerian music, Obi-Wan is one of the clearest examples. Before the crossover, Obi-Wan was one of the most respected voices in Nigerian R&B. He had class, soul, and vocal depth. He first came through the Lagos music space after time with the hip-hop group Thoroughbreds and then broke into wider consciousness as a solo artist. His 2006 debut album Overture delivered the memorable love ballad Onyinye, and that song turned him into a major voice in mainstream Nigerian music. Awards followed, including high-profile recognition for his vocals. At that point, everything suggested he was headed for a bigger secular R&B run. But then came the interruption. According to multiple records, July 2008 was the turning point. That was when Obi-Wan publicly revealed he had undergone a spiritual experience and was transitioning into Christian and gospel music. This is important because many crossover stories get fuzzy with time. Obi-Wan's timeline is unusually clear. Announcement in 2008, then his first gospel album, The Rebirth, arrived in 2009. Why did he do it? In his own words, it was not a career calculation and not something he says can be explained naturally. In a 2022 interview, Obi-Wan said, "Along the line of my music career, I encountered Christ and that changed everything." He described it as a divine call to serve the Christian faith with the talent he had been given.
Number 4.
Wierd.
Wierd's story is one of the most dramatic on this list, but it also requires care because many people talk about it loosely. Before anything about faith entered the conversation, Wierd was already a Nigerian music legend. Long before female rap became fashionable in Nigeria, she had planted a flag. Her 1996 album, Simply Wierd, made history in the hip-hop conversation, and by the time Ijoya exploded in 2006, she was no longer underground. She was a cultural force. She was bold, different, unfiltered, and unmistakably original. She represented a kind of creative rebellion that many younger female artists would later benefit from. So when people began to hear that Wierd MC had changed, they did not just hear a celebrity testimony. They heard that one of the most unconventional women in Nigerian pop culture had stepped into a new spiritual reality.
The public turning point appears in October 2016 when Wierd MC gave an interview discussing her salvation experience and confirming that she was now born again. Later reports repeated that she had come from a dark place emotionally and spiritually, and some linked that change to the grief that followed the death of her close friend, musician No More Loss, who died in 2016. By 2018, reports were already describing her as born again, and by 2021, Vanguard's Allure was referencing a baptism photo she shared, again underlining the spiritual seriousness of her journey. Now, here is the crucial distinction. Unlike Chidinma or Obi-Wan, the evidence does not clearly show a fully documented, commercially established gospel catalog takeover after this moment.
Number 3. Banky W. Banky W may be one of the most surprising names in any secular to gospel crossover conversation because he was not just a mainstream artist, he was a full institution. Before faith language became central to his public image, Banky W was already the polished face of Nigerian R&B. Through albums like Mr. Capable, The W Experience, and R&B W, he helped define an era. He was singer, label boss, executive, hitmaker, star maker. Under Empire Mates Entertainment, he helped launch careers, most famously Wizkid's early rise. But over time, Banky W's public journey changed. Instead of a dramatic press conference announcing "I quit secular music," his change looked gradual. By 2020, he was already preaching at the Waterbrook Church, where reports referred to him as Pastor Banky W.
By 2021, his EP, The Bank Statements, blended romance, reflection, politics, and clear gospel elements. Tracks like Selency featuring Mercy Chinwo and My Destiny with a gospel choir made it obvious that Banky was no longer interested in being only the old R&B idol people remembered. And that is why Banky W's case is so interesting. His secular to gospel switch was not a clean break. It was more like an evolution from celebrity musician into faith-driven public figure. The gospel dimension did not erase the artist, it recentered him.
Number 2.
Bez. Just like Mercy Chinwo, this one needs accuracy more than hype. Bez first became known in Nigeria as an alternative soul artist, not as a conventional secular pop hitmaker. His 2011 debut Super Son and songs like That Stupid Song introduced him as a thoughtful, musically rich singer-songwriter whose sound pulled from soul, jazz, rock, and acoustic textures rather than nightclub formulas. He grew inside a musically inclined family, listened to gospel from childhood, and sang in choirs early in life. So even before any later Christian rebranding, the roots were already there. That is why calling Bez a simple secular to gospel switch can be misleading. He was not exactly living in the center of Nigeria's mainstream party pop machinery. His catalog was always more introspective than that. Still, there is a real shift in how explicitly Christian his public music identity later became.
A major marker came with The Light in 2019, a project that reviewers described as spiritually framed, even when not every track used overt church language. Then came Sacred Songs and Solos in 2021, and by 2025 and 2026, his catalog had become unmistakably Christian-facing, with releases like Ya Yesu in 2025 and Pray and Yabo in 2026. His official YouTube description now identifies him as a UK-based contemporary Christian artist and producer. That is no small detail, that is identity language. So when did the switch happen? Unlike Chidinma, there is no single dramatic press statement I could verify where Bez says, "On this day, I quit secular music." What the evidence shows instead is a gradual but decisive creative redirection that becomes clearly visible by the period of The Light in 2019 and even more obvious with Sacred Songs and Solos in 2021. By the mid-2020s, the transformation is complete enough that his latest public-facing releases and branding are openly Christian.
Number 1. Chidinma. Now this is a true secular to gospel switch and one of the most talked about in modern Nigerian music. Before the crossover, Chidinma was Miss Kedike. She was one of the brightest stars of post-Project Fame Nigeria. After winning Project Fame West Africa in 2010, she quickly became a household name. She had youth appeal, chart power, and commercial relevance. Songs like Kedike, Emini Bola, Jankoliko, and later collaborations such as Ololufe with Flavor helped define her as a polished mainstream pop artist with crossover appeal. She was glamorous, visible, and successful. Then came May 2021. On May 2nd, 2021, she released Jehovah Overdue. On May 4th, 2021, she publicly declared her new identity and said, "My name is Minister Chidinma Ekili. I am a crusader of the gospel of Jesus Christ." In the same period, she explained that she was not making the move because she still wanted fame.
In fact, she said she had already had enough of fame and that it was now time to work for her father. That is as direct as a secular to gospel switch statement gets. Her explanation was intense, urgent, and deeply personal. She spoke about spending time with God, hearing that He had been waiting for her, and feeling that too much time had already been wasted. She framed the move not as rebranding, but as recall, not reinvention, but return. That is what made the public reaction so explosive. This was not a soft crossover. This was a woman at the height of recognition saying, in effect, "I know what I am living, and I know why I am living it." And unlike some artists who announce a shift and then wobble, Chidinma stayed on the path.
Today, Chidinma is clearly operating as a gospel artist and minister. Her pop era is part of her history, but her current brand, music, and message are firmly rooted in gospel. If anyone asks for a recent Nigerian secular to gospel switch done boldly, publicly, and consistently, Chidinma is one of the first names that should come up. The secular to gospel crossover is rarely just about genre. It is usually about identity, about calling, about fatigue with fame, about conviction, about the fear of wasting purpose.
Which of these Nigerian artists had the most powerful secular to gospel switch story for you? And which one do you think people misunderstand the most?